Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. This is the virtual special meeting of the Commissioners of City of Rehoboth Beach. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you all for being here. Commissioner Byrne will not be here today. He was unable to attend. Would like to do a roll call. To start off, Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Ed Stranowski.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
And Mayor Stan Mills is here. We have a quorum so we can formally conduct business. Thank you for being here. I'd also like to note that in the room, some of the city staff that may be participating in this meeting are City Manager Sharon Lynn, Chief Keith Banks, Kevin Williams of Building and Licensing, Dennis Jenny, and Howard Rothstein. Thank you all for being here. Members of the public are available to talk and have the opportunity to talk if they register in advance. Today we welcome Carol Everhart of the Rehoboth Beach Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce. She's the only one that a member of the public that signed up to speak today. Welcome, Carol, and we'll call you at specific times during the agenda. Thank you. The special meeting has two purposes, which we'll get to in a minute. I would like to share with you, as I haven't in a long time, some of the information coming from the governor's office. In a press conference today, the governor shared that the Division of Public Health for Delaware, which is responsible for providing the framework for acquiring and distributing the vaccine, has devised a three-tier strategy for distribution in Delaware. Phase 1A, healthcare personnel, emergency medical services agencies, and long-term care staff and residents will receive the vaccine first. The remainder of Phase 1 will be in early 2021 for those who work in high-risk and critical infrastructure industries, such as food processing, utilities, education, police, and fire, and also those with underlying health conditions and are age 65 and older are likely to receive the vaccine during the balance of Phase 1. In Phase 2 is likely to start around March 2021, and those are for more moderate risk of getting COVID, and the exact group in terms is to be determined. Phase 3 is scheduled, according to the DPH, for spring or summer of 2021. This is when the general public can expect to receive vaccines through their primary health care providers. Would like to note that the governor, as of yesterday, December 14th, included some additional sets of restrictions that went into effect Monday yesterday. Restrictions include stay-at-home advisory, not mandatory, a stricter mask requirement, and further limitations on restaurant and retail. You can get more details on the cityofrehoboth.com website. On the right side, there's a box specifically that will take you to the link for more information on COVID. And I'd like to give a shout out to our communications specialist, Chris Johnson, for her help in assembling some of this information and getting it online. We would like to share with you that the next Sussex County pop-up testing location is at Epworth United Methodist Church on Monday.
No, it was today.
Yesterday, sorry. We'll put that aside and we'll go to Chief Banks gives me a report I wanted to share with you. Chief is kind enough to prepare reports for whenever I have a conversation with the governor during a mayor's call with the governor. And some of the information, very brief, that the chief has shared with us over the last weekend and this weekend. He, as well as his officers, have been doing patrolling on the boardwalk and around town, and they have been reporting a 90 to 95% compliance of mask wearing on the boardwalk. And so that's very high and very good news. So I want to thank the chief, shout out to him also and thank you for your information. Did you want to share anything else?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and citizens. Thank you. I'd just like to add in, as most of you are aware, that last night the governor's new order that all bars and restaurants had a curfew at 10 p.m. Proud to say that the businesses adhered to that, and all establishments were in compliance. Again, I do have to give a nice shout out to our businesses in town, many of which are all are doing the right thing with the social distancing, but they have barriers, they have hand sanitizer, and people, as you're going into the stores during the shopping season, making sure that people have a mask on. So they're really doing a nice job in following the rules. And as the mayor just stated, that we've been using some grant overtime the last few weekends, and we're seeing high compliance rates. And handing out very few masks. A few times we've had to say wear it properly and put a mask up over their nose. But people, for the most part, have their mask in their hand and covering up. So it's just educating them to make sure they put it on. One area that we get all the time is asking us, why do they have to wear a mask on the boardwalk if there's nobody around them? They're social distancing, because the beach you do not. But we're just informing them that's our rules, and they're not arguing back. And I would just like to finish by saying we've had a lot of compliments for us being out there and enforcing and educating the public. So I'm very pleased to say that they like that we're out there, and they commend each of you for making sure we're out there.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? If not, we'll move on to the purpose of this special meeting. Let's see, correspondence, I have none to report. The purpose of this special meeting is twofold. We'll start off with discuss possible incentives for businesses to weather the pandemic, for instance, Meterless Monday, continuance or expansion, etc. Part of me would like to defer on this till a future meeting, because Commissioner Byrne wanted to sponsor this topic, and he cannot make it to this meeting. However, he did write in that he's interested in Meterless Monday, that hopefully the Chamber and Main Street would comment on it, and I guess he's indicating he'd like to see it return. But the main thing time-wise is Commissioner Byrne says he suggests delay payment for business licenses from December 31st, 2020 to July 1st, 2021. Currently, this is a very difficult time for most of our businesses, and the delay may help, says Commissioner Byrne. So I don't know if you want any conversation on that, or any other conversation, or if you'd be willing to defer at least some of the conversations to the next meeting. I'll open it up to commissioners. Anything?
I'll just make a comment in that I support both of those initiatives. And if you'd like to put it off until the next meeting, that's fine with me. But I think Meterless Monday is important. Expand it, creatively about it. So I support both.
Well, let's be aware that we can defer on some things, but if we wanted to defer on the delaying the payment for business license fees, there may likely not be a meeting before that time. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I was going to say, I support continuing the Meterless Mondays. I had mentioned that at a previous meeting as well. And the only thing I would say there is that when the concept first came up, one of the things I questioned at the time was, is Monday a good day? You know, maybe Thursday would be a better day in terms of being able to benefit more people. And well, Mondays went through, and I have to say it has a nice ring to it. And it's become sort of something we were known for after we started doing it. So I'm not sure I'd want to mess with it. And I'd have the same question about whether we would add a day possibly. I don't know. I understand the revenue is going to be critical for next year, but in one form or another, I do support it. And if it's better to just stick with what we've got, that's fine. On the license fees, I guess I'm supportive of certainly of some sort of delay. My only question there would be, have a lot of businesses paid them already? I don't know how that normally comes in. So I don't know whether that's something everybody just does at the end of December, so it'll help everybody, or whether, most of them are already paid.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gossett?
Just a couple of questions on the defer of the payment of permitting. Again, is that a deferment or a waiver of permit? Just to be clear on that. And secondly, again, I maybe some have already begun to pay those permit fees, and I think it's for restaurants. Is this for all payments or all license fees, or is it limited to restaurants and retail, or how do we define that? And I know a while back we made the change to go from our year of July 1 through June 30th because it was too much of a burden on the restaurants to have to pay. It was too confusing, too much going on in the busy season. So then we switched the payment to calendar year from January 1 to December 31. So we just completed that process. In fact, last time we had an 18-month period where the permits were issued. So I don't know if that's going to be confusing to people to say, well, we're going to go back to the way we used to be only for a short period of time. So again, I don't know whether doing this, I would just like a little more clarity in how this would become operationalized and not be too confusing to our permit applications. I think the restaurants are $650 a year, and with alcohol and non-alcohol, I believe is $325. So again, I don't, it's certainly a sizable amount of money, but again, just lay out how this would become operational. And then with regards to Meterless Mondays, I would support it, but I also would like to go in that with a little more knowledge of exactly how much revenue we would be forfeiting, if you will, for each day based on our past practices, and is Monday the most applicable time? And I also know that Main Street began sort of a marketing campaign about this, but I don't know that it was, there was one strong push right in the beginning. But I would like to also see if we do this, to do it in concert either with Main Street and or the Chamber to better market it and to make it a better impact so that we are not only forfeiting the revenue that we see from those parking spaces, but making it effective for that we're really seeing a difference in the retail spike, if you will, and restaurant spike in the city, so that we have some measurement that what we're doing is paying off, if you will.
Thank you, Commissioner. You started off with asking if Commissioner Byrne was suggesting a waiver, and no, he's just suggesting delayed payment from December 31st to July 1st. Sharon, do you have any comment before we get to Ed Chernowski? I understand there could be a deadline for payment of business licenses that goes as far as the end of June. Do you recall?
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So the business license letters went out last week, and to date, so they immediately, almost immediately started trickling in. I'll say to date, we probably have approximately 100 of those that have been sent in, and we're getting more every day. It's true that the businesses have been given a reprieve, if you will, for that 18-month period last summer, including the pandemic being, I think, a very good thing for the businesses. On the other hand, as Commissioner Gossett points out, the cost of the license, I won't say anything is nominal based on any business having lost an amount of revenue, but the business license is considerably less money than other licenses that we have. Certainly in the city, people are, again, in normal times, certainly businesses are eager to pay that, and they do pay that on a regular basis. So I think, what the commissioners need to consider, we want to be gracious and help these businesses out as best we can, but, we also have the city to consider and the city's own loss of revenue. Regarding the due date, we don't normally engage in any fines or, we just remind people that their business license is due, and we take that into consideration. But most people pay their business licenses. They are due within a certain amount of time. I can't recall what that is right now.
Well, Sharon, I had one business contact me saying that, they thought that the letter said, payment would be delinquent after June 30th or something like that.
Yeah, so that was an error that we're in the midst of repairing, and it was the old letter that when the business license was sent out for the period starting in January, it was due. So that was an error, and we're again not penalizing anyone for that, but we will correct that.
Okay.
The old letter.
Otherwise, it realized Commissioner Burns' desire
At the
there.
end of January is what the time period should be. But, most businesses are aware of the business license and send it in pretty quickly.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Stronowski?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll start with the business license. I think the fact that it has already been sent out and they are coming in, I wouldn't make an overall delay or anything like that. As the city manager and her staff have done in the past, if a specific business needs to defer or is having a problem or needs a payment plan, I suggest that they reach out to the city manager directly. She's been accommodating on things like that as she should be. So I think since they've already been sent out and are already coming back, that unless a specific business has an issue or a problem that they need to work out directly, I'd say that the way that it's going about as regular business, despite the typo, is sufficient. I'm also in favor of continuing Meterless Mondays or Thursdays or Tuesdays, whatever the case may be. I think we need to rely on, as Commissioner Gay said, Meterless Mondays has a ring to it. It's recognizable. It's good for branding. But if that's not the right day to do it, then we can look at doing it another night. But I think we need input from the businesses, the Chamber and Main Street to tell us what is the best night to do it and how to best market it, along with those other community organizations. So, but in general, I'm fine deferring it. I think we're all in agreement. It's just working out the details on how to best communicate it and what day is the best day.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and I think it's brought out that the city has been very accommodating with regards to water bills of working out a payment plan or something. So if a applicant for a permit, I'm sure, needs a payment plan or a delay in billing, that the city manager and the staff would certainly be accommodating, much like they are with the water bills.
Thank you. Any other comment on incentives for businesses?
Mayor, I do have an estimate for Meterless Monday, if you'd like me to just talk.
Yeah, if you do that, then we'll go to Carol and see if she has any comments. Go ahead.
Okay. So this past season, we had 8 Meterless Mondays. They ran from July 27th through September 14th. The commissioners at first made the Meterless Monday, recommended and voted on the Meterless Monday going through the end of August, and then it was extended through September 14th, just before the meters were meter season, I'll say, was over. It was 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., and they were eight Mondays. On an average, again, we don't have a clear way of honing in on every meter in every section of the city, but on average, there was a total daily loss of approximately $7,500. So that was each Monday from 4 to 10 p.m.
How much?
$7,500.
Okay.
So there was a total of $60,000 for those 8 meterless Mondays. And again, we took an average of the time periods and the transactions that were made there.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? If not, I'd like to see if Carol Everhart of the Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce would like to comment and share any additional data or information she might have. Carol, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I agree with Commissioner Shitnowski. The business licenses, if they've gone out, it's really an administrative issue for the city manager and your team. My belief is that there's not an issue with that, especially if they do have a particular problem and they can go to the city manager and express that problem. And she listens to that and makes a decision. I don't see an issue there at all. With the Meterless Mondays, all reports I have is that it was very successful. The business community liked it. It's an easy marketing issue for us with advertisements. The visitor guide is coming up. So when you do make a decision, the sooner the better, because we can get it out there. Once that's completed and printed, then it's too late, but we can certainly include it in ads and anything else the city would like. I think it's a benefit to the business community.
So Carol, you mentioned advance notice of a program like that. Are you talking about January, February? Is there a suggested timeline that we get to you information so you can advertise it?
Well, if we know by mid-January, I can save space in the visitor's guide knowing that something's coming, but we are anticipating sending that to the printer. We actually delayed it a month this year. So we're sending it to the printer late January. It will be in mid-February. So that's our timeline.
Thank you. Our first budget meeting is when? January
4th.
January 4th. I don't know whether this should be part of the discussion of our budget and our revenue sources. Because if so, then there's time indicated that we could evaluate it further and take a vote and still have time to get a favorable result to the Chamber of Commerce if desired. Susan Gay, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm glad Carol brought that up about the deadline, because she had mentioned that at a previous meeting. And this is deja vu. I feel like we do this every year where, the meter rates and there's other things that we don't quite get to in time for the deadline of that visitor's guide. So if we, and I didn't realize until today that it had been pushed back a month, but especially given that, I think we ought to try to set as much as we can in place so that it can be in that guide.
What's the favor of the commissioners? Then we'll wait for the budget meeting and discuss it and then go forward, take a vote on it. How do you want to proceed?
If I can make a comment. So what I'm gathering from what I'm hearing from everyone is they're supportive of Meterless Monday. Carol is found that it's very, the businesses like it. So Commissioner Burns already stated how he feels about it. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't just move forward with voting on it today. I don't know that there's other things that he was looking for in my conversations with him. He just wanted to make sure we moved it forward with it, that we all supported it.
Sure. Well, considering that these COVID meetings will not likely occur consecutive Tuesdays for the next month, it might be prudent to go ahead and vote on it today if you like. So if you're comfortable, then somebody could make a motion and a second to, but we need to know what the time frame is. Is the time frame the entirety of the summer parking meter season? If so, it needs to be stated in there.
Well, I would make a motion to Well, okay, so I'll make the motion to move forward with meterless Mondays for the entire summer season. Or the entire year, as long as the meters are,
In the same time frame as last year, 4 PM to 10 PM?
yes, 4 PM to 10 PM.
Is there anybody going to second that?
Second.
Well, failing a second, then we'll put this on,
I
yes,
just said something.
Susan?
Seconded.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, Commissioner Gay, you seconded it?
I did, yes.
Okay, didn't hear you, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor to revisit, and allow for meterless Mondays during the entirety of the parking season in 2021, from the hours 4 PM to 10 PM. That has been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Is there discussion?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
Can we
I'm sorry,
discuss?
discuss, let's go to discussion. We've got, forgive me, Patrick Gossett?
I support this. I think this is part of the equation. And just a quick and dirty, I think there are 15 Mondays in the parking season. That works out to about $112,500 in revenue, which is not chump change by any means, especially when we're, putting projects off because we don't have the revenue. But I also feel, and I support this, but it's only part of the equation. How is this going to be marketed? Who's going to buy into it? What is the issue that brings it forward? I think those are critical parts of moving this forward. We certainly can do our part, but how to publicize it, and is Monday the right day? It sounds nice, but we don't have any feedback or information really from, except anecdotal, from the merchants. So I support it, but I just think this is just a part of the equation that needs to be resolved before we move forward. Now, we can say we'll do this based on X, Y, and Z, but I just feel that everybody needs to have some skin in the game besides us.
All right, so I'm hearing you would like to postpone this vote for more evaluation. Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
Are we settled that Monday's their favorite day? And number two, I think we could anticipate a blockbuster summer if the progression of the vaccine goes as predicted now. Does the 112,500 hold for the summer, or is that how did we arrive at that number of $7,500 a day, a Monday?
That was the information that the city manager provided as an average of revenue lost in the previous summer.
Okay, then that's pretty solid. Yeah, if my only question then would be if that's their favorite day, and if that's the favorite day, I feel more inclined. Can anybody enlighten me on that? Commissioner Gossett, are you confident with Monday?
I have no information other than it sounds good. Meterless Monday as opposed to meterless Wednesday or meterless Thursday. Again, I just don't see any input. It was a success.
Yes.
I don't know how to qualify that. And again, I just feel that we need to, have more of the equation in it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, Commissioner Gossett, Carol Everhart has said that the businesses really were in support of it. Now, from what you're saying, it sounds like you want to go out with some sort of survey, and I don't know if you're looking at the commissioner, the city to do that, or you're looking at Main Street to do that, or you're looking at Carol's group to do it. But I suspect we could do that. I do think that we've already had Meterless Monday. They could, change it up and do a lot of publicity, I suspect, to make it Meterless Thursday. But if you're looking at the financial picture, I am sure we get more revenues on Thursday than we do on Monday. So if you're looking at something that's going to not affect our budget as much, I would think Monday would probably be the day. So just my 2 cents.
No, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. I just think that, again, it's part of the equation. So again, I support it, but I just don't know that we have, and we can vote on it today if you want, but I just feel that it's just part of the equation that needs to be, it seems that we're um, sort of doing this a partial of what really needs to be done as a comprehensive package of how to market this and, get buy-in and what have you.
Maybe we should ask Carol then again if she feels, she represents quite a few businesses in downtown, if she feels it would be of value to survey the businesses for this purpose. And my concern would be, we would get something all over the map. But, be that as it may.
We probably would. I don't disagree with that. But again, if we're going to do it, I just feel that there needs to be some consolidated effort from Main Street and the chamber if they want to be involved. We certainly have our communications department, which did a great job getting it out this past summer. But if they're tying in marketing efforts or something of that nature, I know we had an update from Main Street at our workshop that they were going to do outreach and what have you. I just think that there has to be more of a consolidated effort. That's all I'm saying. I support the concept, but I again, $112,000 to me is a lot of money to invest when we're not sure what other than Meterless Mondays we're investing in. I'll put it that way.
Thank you. We'll go to the other commissioners and then we'll go back to Carol. Commissioner Sernowski?
Yeah, Mayor, I wouldn't want to, although I am absolutely in favor of the concept, I certainly don't want to vote on it without talking to more of the business owners, Main Street, to get more information and input from the chamber, as well as have a better understanding on what the revenue loss would be, looking at, an average of Mondays before we started doing Meterless Mondays last year, look at the year or two prior, what the average Mondays were, and really talk to some business folks and see, is that the best way to utilize loss of revenue? Is it the best day? Is it the best use of resources? And how is, like Commissioner Acosta said, how is there a collective effort to make it work the best for everyone? So while I support it 100% in concept, I certainly wasn't expecting to vote on it today.
Thank you. I think one additional consideration should probably be that you all are offering this for the entire meter season, which goes to September. The likelihood of COVID continuing is very real. But should there be an earlier deadline on terminating Meterless Mondays? That's just a big question mark I'm throwing out there. Commissioner Susan Gay?
Yeah, I was just going to add, and I think some good points have been made about not jumping the gun to vote on it. The reason I seconded it is because I am aware of this deadline pressure in the market. I think that visitor's guide is an important part of marketing. So I'd love to see some input and figure out the right package and figure out the right time. If we can do it by early January, I can go either way. The one thing I was going to add is that I think overall, and this is a comment to the city manager as well as to all of us, as we go through the budget process, I'd like to keep track of just what we are spending, to help the businesses during COVID, and in terms of lost revenue as well as outright costs. I just want to sort of keep that going as a category that we monitor as we go through the budget process, because I think it's quite a lot, and I want to be able to to kind of wrap our arms around just what we're doing.
Thank you. Carol, are you still there? Do you have any further comment?
I am still here. Number one, I can simply hold a page in the guide, and as long as there's some kind of a decision in January, we will just fill in that page with the decision. And remember, I only had 8 Mondays to go by. So the report I had for those 8 Mondays was it did help their business. Now, if you asked me, was it only on Rehoboth Avenue Was it on Wilmington and Baltimore too? I can't tell you that. So we'd be more than willing to put out a survey and see what kind of response we get and provide that to you early January so you'd know.
Well, I think that, I'm suggesting this path forward. Thank you, Carol. That there seems to be some doubt and more questions. I'd like to see the second withdrawn and the motion withdrawn. That we have are aware of a time frame to get information to Carol. I believe we can meet that time frame because we should be meeting at least in early January for another COVID meeting. And be able to take care of it then. What I'd like to suggest if we go that route is that everybody that has questions, pose them to Commissioner Gossett, who's been leading these conversations and managing them, so that he can approach Carol or Sharon to get more information to present at our next COVID meeting. Is there any comment, Commissioner Paluzzi?
Yes, I'd be willing to withdraw the motion. But one thing I would say is I would hope that Commissioner Gay, who works with with Carol, would be working to bring that information to us in May. And likewise, Commissioner Szymanski, who is the liaison for Main Street, would do the same. So we're not, waiting for that data, that we could get that as soon as possible so that we do vote in a timely manner.
And I withdraw the second with the same.
Okay, so we have the motion withdrawn and the second withdrawn. We will anticipate putting this topic on our next COVID meeting, date to be determined. But in the meantime, I would say accelerate getting your questions to Patrick so that he can manage them and seek answers for our next meeting. Thank you very much. Patty, I still have your hand up?
Oh, no.
Nope, you're okay then. Is there any other comment on further incentives for businesses during the pandemic?
Yes, if I may, Mayor, I'm wondering, I've talked with other businesses about this and other professionals about this, people from other cities. And one of the things that they had said that has worked in different cities, and maybe from Main Street knows a little bit about this, I don't know, but landlords who have storefronts in the city, they can only remain empty for a certain amount of time until they start having to pay a fee to the city. So I don't know how people feel about this, but I do know they've done this in different cities, and perhaps that might be something that we might consider, given that I'm very concerned about some, a variety of empty storefronts we may be looking at come the summer season.
Thank you. Commissioner Szymanski?
Sure. Just to comment on that, it's something that I've looked into extensively. I've talked to other municipalities that do it, and people involved with it. I've talked to quite a few local commercial property owners, and it's a very, I think it's going to be very difficult to do here in the unique way that Rehoboth is. And it is something I've thought about a lot recently. And as I'm hearing how quickly some of these storefronts are being rented, and how much interest there is in some of them, I can tell you that I'm personally not overly worried about us having a lot of empty storefronts come this spring. There is a lot of interest in businesses coming here, and a lot of the places have already been rented out. So it's not something it's something I've always been worried about in the past, and I'm less worried about it now. And I don't know if that's because as businesses have struggled, that becomes an opportunity for people that are looking to buy new businesses, or the fact that, Joe Biden was elected president and he has a presence here, and people look at that as an opportunity to open a business in an area that they think will be popular. But those are just my personal opinions on it, as I've talked to people, especially commercial landlords recently.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
I agree with Commissioner Stronowski and especially with Commissioner Calusi. I walk the malls every time it rains, and it is really depressing to see empty storefronts. So hopefully Ed's right. That things are looking good, but nevertheless, I agree with Commissioner Calusi. We really need to keep an eye on that because that is a depressing sight to see empty storefronts in the tourist season. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gossett, anything on incentives?
Just that I also have investigated those empty storefronts, and it's abandoned or vacant property taxes. And typically municipalities either double or triple the tax rate on that particular piece of property for the fee of abandoned or vacant properties after 60 or 90 days. So it is some type of incentive, even though our taxes are very low. That's a formula that has been effective in many other municipalities to encourage the lessening, if you will, of vacant storefronts. So it's something to kind of keep in the back of our minds, but I'm encouraged to hear that there is positive outlook there for filling the storefronts this coming season.
Thank you. Seems we're getting away from incentives, and that's more a little different topic that we could put on in the future. Commissioner Stronowski?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor. We're probably getting off a little bit, but I would like to add this to a future meeting agenda as not just empty storefronts, but deteriorating facades and stuff like that has become a concern for Main Street and dealing with commercial property owners. So I think this is all a category that we can put on to a future agenda. I think it's very important for us to talk about.
Thank you. With that, there appears to be no additional comments. We'll go on to the next item. The next item of business for the special meeting is introduction of city manager's preliminary recommendations for dining opportunities on public lands for restaurant after the governor's state of emergency order is lifted, i.e. post-pandemic. If you recall, I tasked the city manager and her building and licensing staff to take a look at dining opportunities throughout the city in a post-pandemic world. And with that, I want to hand it over to Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. I will have more to say about this, but I request that the chief be able to speak here. He needs to leave in a few minutes to get on an important call with the governor. And I would say that in speaking with staff and particularly building and licensing and Chief Banks, there are several concerns with this, one certainly being safety. So I'll turn that over to Chief Banks.
Yes, good afternoon again, Mayor, Commissioners, and citizens. The important thing to remember, we're talking about post-pandemic or whatever. So we're hoping that we have a lot of people in town, vehicular traffic, foot traffic, up and down the sidewalks. And I certainly think it was successful to these restaurants during the pandemic to be able to get outside and to help us out. But after reaching out to different municipalities, and my big concern is with the traffic once we get more people in town. That like on Rehoboth Avenue, most of those streets in those municipalities are closed down. They don't let traffic through. So if we're going to continue having traffic, that does concern me safety-wise. Just like we talked about in the past too, eating outside in the parking lots or parking spaces or whatever is finally decided that if you went that route, but I'm gonna say we shouldn't be doing that. It's just with fumes and all that, because traffic gets backed up, so you're just going to be sitting there at the lower level if we didn't do something about that. So again, it's really about safety concerns with too many vehicle traffic and pedestrians walkway around anything outside after the post-pandemic. Again, that's based on reaching out to other municipalities and all, because again, the ones that are very successful, and a lot of them are, but they're completely closed down areas. They don't let people drive by it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. So the main topics that we discussed are certainly safety, the fact that post-pandemic, everything back to normal. Imagine the thousands of people on any given day that visit Rehoboth Beach, the city, in the time that we've closed the parking off this past year. So when we have those folks returning, not just pedestrians, but those pushing wheelchairs, baby carriages, and just able-bodied folks in and of themselves, it becomes a safety hazard because there's just not a lot of room. And for those where space is at a premium and other areas where there are wider sidewalks, it becomes a fairness issue. So this restaurant in particular could have outdoor dining, but this other area and other districts on Rehoboth Avenue could not. The next issue, certainly very high on the list, is liability. In speaking with our insurance broker, not just once, but 2 times this past season. One was for the concrete barriers when we installed all of those back in May, and the other is when we had some relief and we permitted outdoor dining as we had up until November 1st. There were extreme liability issues that were brought to my attention from our insurance carrier. And they ran the gamut from just alcohol consumption, crowd control at the time, but not necessarily, but maybe probably after post-pandemic, mask wearing, because I believe that will still somehow be a mandate. The maximum limit of people outside any particular establishment, and just our sidewalks in general. So we do a lot of maintenance prior to the season with filling cracks and having sidewalks leveled with an outside contractor that we use. So these are some of the issues in particular that present a hazard, not only for liability concerns, but for safety reasons with the general public. And then there's just the fact that the city of Rehoboth Beach was not constructed, even in streetscape, to have outdoor dining with the parameters that we put in place to assist the businesses this past summer. And I would say that the only way that we could have this is to continue with the tables up against the facade of the restaurant with that X amount of feet required for safe passage. There's just too many people, too many vehicles, too many wheelchairs, too many bicycles that make this a very difficult situation. I would also add, just very briefly, that if we continue and with a feasibility study for Wilmington and Baltimore Avenue, I would expect to have that as part of the feasibility study to see just what we can do there with upgrading sidewalks and maybe plan for that in future years. So that's the staff recommendation. We spent many hours talking about this, and it works now. We certainly want to give the the businesses the benefit of the doubt. We love outdoor dining. We all do. Everyone does. It was very successful. But that was when the restaurants it needed that extra bit of consideration from the city. I think post-pandemic, when things are back to normal, it's going to be a very difficult situation for us to not only enforce that, but for restaurants to comply with that.
So am I hearing you clearly that your recommendation is no outside dining post-pandemic, or to further develop outside dining merely with tables against front facades, and that's it?
I believe the only way that we can move forward with that is for outside dining only up against the facade of the restaurant, the tables close to the restaurant itself.
So the devil's in the details. It's, we have to develop what's the minimum acceptable width of the pathway left on the boardwalk, and as well as other parameters.
Well, yes, and it brings into focus too what the city has done in the past 20, 25, maybe, even a little longer than that, 25 years, and planning for parking revenue. We've built up a revenue stream from parking revenue that is very important to every component that we put forward in the budget process. Not certainly staffing, but infrastructure now that we have a major push for. We're moving ahead with that. Just about every project that the commissioners want to see move forward and everything else that ties into our budget. So when you see those revenue predictions, certainly parking revenue is and has been for many, many years a huge piece of that. So I bring that up only to say that yes, we were gracious. I was all for it. I'm glad we were able to do that. As you've heard me say, we're probably in a better position than others because of that, based on other streams of revenue that we've seen been very robust in the months past. But to have that continue as a decision of the commissioners, of course, where you want to take that and just how we can best handle this.
Okay, so we have a general information from you. We're absent a few details, but let's go to discussion. Commissioner Cluzy, you have your hand up.
I do. So I thank you. I appreciate the input, Sharon. I don't think that we should completely discount the idea that we could have outdoor dining. It's very, very clear that people want it. It's something that I think is going to help us moving forward in terms of the people that we have, the visitors that come to town. And I would, on a short-term basis, I would be fine with just tables against the wall, much like Lupo does, and I believe Finn's. There's probably others, and maybe yes, maybe you think of it as fairness, but I think we can't, in my mind, we can't say we can't have outdoor dining if everybody can't do it. I mean, it's just like certain restaurateurs have certain restaurants with, they're paying a certain amount of money to rent that space anyway. So I would at minimal like to see those that can put tables against the building be able to continue to do this post-pandemic. There's probably more discussion that needs to be, on that subject. But to me, it's clear that it was very successful and people really like it. And I think they're going to be very disappointed if we don't have it. So the other thing that was mentioned by the city manager was the Baltimore Avenue and the Wilmington streetscapes. I mean, that is something we really need to think about. I mean, if we were we're talking about streetscape, and it's a pretty permanent thing. I mean, once you start doing something like that, you're looking 20, 30 years, it's going to be there. So we need to think long and hard, I believe, of what we really want for the town. I mean, we need to think about the future and what we want the town to look like. And so I think it's important that we don't just automatically decide that we're not going to do it at all. So those are my comments, and I think it deserves a lot more conversation than just not moving forward with it at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll offer some of my comments that I've voiced before that during the pandemic, that we've had extraordinary times. We can be and we have been ultra flexible with our business community, where we've been a little lax in having written rules, but that's okay. In the short term, it's worked fine with the city manager managing things. Now, I've also mentioned before many times about post-pandemic times. My expectation and what post-pandemic means to me is that patronage of restaurants and retail will be back to 100%. The visitor density will increase and the sidewalks will return to being very crowded. I think I can't stress that enough. The density will increase and sidewalks will return to being overcrowded. And we need for the written rules. That's where if we go forward, like we've done before and Patrick's helped with, is trying to not codify, but write policy. This is probably important enough that it would need to be codified if we go forward with this. I had hoped for, I guess, a little more detail in what might be proposed, but I also believe I should have anticipated, or we should have anticipated, that outdoor dining is a very challenging proposition for the Rehoboth Beach. City manager mentioned today, she also mentioned 2 years ago, that the city is not designed for outdoor dining. And Commissioner Gay, 2 meetings ago, said that the city, it was difficult to retrofit. The sidewalks, if you're being mindful of Rehoboth Avenue, sidewalk widths vary greatly along Rehoboth Avenue. There's no consistency in widths per block. There's safety issues with high sidewalks, high curbs in certain areas. And I'm not sure I shared with you last time, but I was in Salisbury, Maryland recently. They've got a new outdoor dining areas, but they have those outdoor dining areas because the outdoor dining was designed as part of their streetscape. It was not retrofitting, and it works well there on a different scale. They're not anywhere near to what our scale is, a much smaller scale. So, I think this is a good exercise by the city manager in building and licensing. I appreciate their time and thought in the matter. I understand the rationale for their opinions today. I too love the concept of outdoor dining areas, more so on private property and so on public property. But eateries like the concept. It worked very well for them. And the dining patrons loved the concept, those I saw. So I'm willing to suggest we take a second shot at it and continue the conversation. Perhaps we acknowledge that the dining outside large scale is a challenge to ensure safety of dining patrons, safety of pedestrians, adequate pedestrian pathways on the public sidewalks, some of these criteria. I believe that part of the formula, if we look forward, should say no to street cafes or parklets. I don't think, and you heard the chief indicate that those were troublesome to him. I think we should say no to dining on the full width of public sidewalks that require pedestrian pathways in the parking spaces. No more loss of parking spaces, no more loss of parking revenues, and that should be part of our formula. So I'm recommending that we ask the city manager of building and licensing to take another look, perhaps this time looking at which eateries might be candidates for dining on the public sidewalks by establishing minimum sidewalk widths, possibly per block or per business, using some kind of formula. There's got to be some kind of formula for this. They should be able to help devise a possible minimalist outdoor dining plan, considering the returning of crowds of the summertime. But most important to me and I believe I've mentioned this before, and I'll continue to mention it, most important, I believe that we all need to acknowledge that whatever program is developed, if it's developed, for outdoor dining on public sidewalks, that it may not be fair to all. It likely won't be fair to all. It will not give all eateries the same opportunity for outdoor dining. And if we agree with this acknowledgement, then I feel comfortable asking the city manager and building and licensing to give additional thought as to what minimalist program could be devised to allow some eateries to utilize outdoor dining. And I respect the opinions of the city manager and building and licensing, and I appreciate their time on this. I'd like to get more feedback from you all. We've got Commissioner Sharnowski, please.
Sure, Mayor. I generally agree with everything you and Commissioner Calusi said. I think it was good to get the city manager's opinion and thoughts with her staff on what actually is feasible. I tend to agree. We can acknowledge it's not going to be 100% fair going forward. But I think that's just the way our town is. We don't have there are inconsistent sidewalks, high sidewalks, etc. And I acknowledge that. And I think what we've done here for August 1 through I think March 31st, with having just single tables against the facade. And I think we came up with a 5-foot walkway width, which I think is what we have in place at the moment. I think that's a good starting point for looking at something permanent. Obviously, we're going to need a lot more than 5 feet with walking space going into the spring and summer season. But at least I think we've at least started to draft something that could be long-term using those parameters. So I think we're not in a terrible spot going forward. It's certainly not as much outdoor dining as I'd love to see. I was obviously a huge proponent of the parklets and street cafes, but it's something that works, and it's not a one size fits all. We especially have challenges with most of our parking being diagonal pulled in, whereas a lot of other communities don't have that, and it's parallel parking or more blocked pull in. So those are my thoughts. I think the city manager gave us something to think about moving forward, and I think it's a good place to start the conversation and continue it over the coming weeks.
Thank you. Before we get to Commissioner Gossett, City Manager Sharon Lynn, you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So again, I was tasked with recommending to the mayor and commissioners, and this is, of course, the staff recommendation and one that I agree with. I also will say that we'll do whatever the commissioners decide on as far as policy. In addition to that, and just by the way, Mayor, I was giving you the cliff notes of our discussions. There's no one better who does detail than Mayor Mills. So I was not going to delve into just everything that we spoke about. And I certainly think that you did a very adequate job in summing that up. I will also say that I really don't think, as we sit here soon, ending the year 2020, that we will be in a back to 100% next season. I certainly know that, with in light of what's coming down the road with immunizations for this disease, we'll be certainly in a better place. But I really think that come start of the spring and into the summer season, we'll be looking at some restrictions again, and not necessarily having full force and full view of everything that we know to be normal. So I think we're going to have to take this into the spring and continue these conversations. And quite possibly, consider what we're gonna do when we come into full operating season at the end of May, to see where we are. So I still think it's a moving target and we need to consider it.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Marilyn. And I think in approaching this, I don't necessarily look at it, I do look at it as in fairness, obviously, but we also have a great opportunity here in the city that more than 40 restaurants have taken advantage of, and that's a patio. And we have a very specific outline and ordinance that addresses patios. And I think if we take that same approach with outdoor dining and setting specific criteria that will be effect when we're, quote, back to normal or full capacity or what have you, that it just has to be looked at as another opportunity for restaurants. Not every restaurant in town can take advantage of the opportunity of a patio, as the same would be true of not every restaurant could take the advantage of outdoor dining as that opportunity. So I think that's the way to look at it, and not skirting the actual or availability of fairness, but these are just opportunities, and there's opportunities not all of us can take advantage of everyone. But I think to approach it from that standpoint, that here's something that will be safe, will be meet with our liability concerns from our insurance operators. And again, one size does not fit all. What happens in the first block of Rehoboth Avenue versus the fourth block of Rehoboth Avenue versus the second block of Wilmington are really different criteria. And I think that they, at this time, really need to be addressed that way. And to approach it from that standpoint of opportunities. And again, looking towards building and licensing and the city manager to set those basic rules or minimum standards that have to be adhered to, and going forward, that if you are able to meet these standards, maybe in this particular block or this particular section, then you have the opportunity for outdoor dining, and leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very glad that the city manager pointed out that there would be probably some restrictions even next season, because what I was thinking is, first of all, I don't believe that a switch is going to be flipped sometime in the coming months, and everything will just suddenly one day go back to quote unquote normal. Obviously, I've seen the sort of rollout of the vaccine plans, and it seems there that even after that schedule and after most people are vaccinated, that there's still going to be some sort of mask mandate. And I view that period as not full on pandemic, which is what we're in now, but some sort of transition period. And we're still going to need, as you said, we're still probably going to have some sort of restrictions during that point. And whether that involves a state mandated state of emergency, I don't know. We never got to phase 3 from the state's criteria. And I can't recall right offhand what was in phase 3, whether that was essentially back to pre-pandemic or whether it was some sort of transition phase. But at any rate, I think that's where we'll be. I actually don't believe that we will be true post-pandemic in the 2021 season. I think we'll be in some sort of phase. And I also think some of these thoughts are just random, but have come to me as I've listened to it today. I don't think the decision about tables against the facade or outdoor dining are totally ours to make, because during the state of emergency, the Alcohol Control Board has allowed for liquor to be served outside. They're going to obviously figure out when to go back, or whether to change that policy permanently. So it's not totally on us to make some of these decisions. And yes, I think that we should definitely take into account the increased interest in outdoor dining as we are getting started on the Wilmington Avenue streetscapes, because that's the time to do it if ever there was one. And then finally, I don't, and Commissioner Gossett really said this very well, but I just want to reiterate that I don't think it's a fairness issue so much as, because you do want to be fair. I want it to be fairly applied. It's a matter of creating standards that are then fairly applied. But the standards will be different for different parts of town.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Gay. There will be different standards for different folks. I certainly don't foresee restaurants that are using their parking lots or, as we said, patios, wanting to quit doing that post-pandemic. I think some of them who own their own parking lots and I'm speaking on private property, will want to continue, and we might ought to think about allowing that to happen. I have, and as Commissioner Gay said, probably there's going to be a change in the, if that happens, there'll probably need to be a change in the alcohol beverage control stipulations, but we ought to remain flexible, and we don't need to make this decision until, well, we have time ahead of us. We're going to know a lot more when May gets here than we do now. We'll know what phase 3 of that vaccination schedule looks like by the time we get to the end of April. I'm confident. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sernowski?
Sure. Commissioner Legree made up a good point that I intended to make earlier. What we discussed with the city manager and got her input was just on public space. There's this whole different thing that probably warrants more discussion, and that's the business's use of private space, and how we continue or expand that, which is a conversation that I think we need to have based on, the public wanting more outdoor space. And although we have we've got a patio ordinance now, we've got a lot of laxness with people using private outdoor space now. So we do need to put some parameters on that going forward, or expand it if we're going to. So that's just another aspect of this we have to talk about, and that's continued use of private space, not just public space. And I do know we're talking about the ABCC. There is legislation that's going to be heard that is going to lax some of these outdoor rules, and it is already being sponsored and pushed along the General Assembly. So that's something that we also need to keep in mind.
Thank you. Commissioner Calusi?
Thank you. Yes, actually, Commissioner Cherznowski really covered most of what I was going to say. As far as the ABCC, correct me if I'm wrong, we have put together policy that guides businesses in terms of patio. And I don't know what the difference would really be if we put, for example, I'll just point to Lupo again. They put tables against the front of their, and this is post-pandemic, so we're probably, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but in any case, if they put tables along their facade, as long as they are cordoned off in some fashion, then isn't it up to the city to make the determination that we can give them a quote unquote patio license or some other, we can call it something different. It's not exactly a patio. Would that be the case? Do we really need anything else from the ABCC?
My expectation, Pat, is that if we go the route of allowing additional tables on public property, that would likely be an additional supplemental permit of compliance rather than tagging it on with the existing outdoor.
But that would
Patrick,
be our decision. That's our decision, right? That's nothing we have to go through ABCC.
Well, that would be our decision to do that. And then we need legislation to change to allow for alcohol sales on public property post-pandemic.
Okay.
Patrick, did you have anything to add?
Yeah,
As you've been looking into this.
Sorry, just a clarification. Right now, the reason the ABCC is allowing alcohol to be served outdoors is specifically legislation that expires March 31. And as Commissioner Sernowski was referring to, there is currently legislation being drafted to carry that beyond that date. But if you serve alcohol outside, currently not having been affected by this additional legislation, you have to have a license for outdoor service. And that the way the city of Rehoboth is set up, that you would have to have a permit of compliance that parallels patio right now. If the
Right.
city then approves that permit of compliance, ABCC basically just rubber stamps and gives you that outdoor license. Rehoboth is about the only municipality in the state of Delaware that does it that way. Most others allow the applicant to go directly to the ABCC. So our permit of compliance is kind of that middle road that the city still has control or oversight in that. So there's a couple of different things playing in the middle of it. That it is ABCC, but it's also this extensive legislation that expires March 31. But there is draft legislation to have a manipulation of that or a massaging of that to carry it beyond. So
Thank you. I'd like to go to the members of the public. Carol Everhart, are you there? Have any comments on post-pandemic outdoor dining?
I do, Mayor. I'd like to go back to, in October, we did a survey. You may remember this. We did 119 downtown eateries of one kind. 72 were what we call sit-down restaurants. 72 of them. We talked to 46. The interesting thing is many of the things you're saying, both positive and negative, are exactly what they said. They said yes to continuing outdoor dining. That was 29 out of the 46 said yes, continue it. One size does not fit all. It's right here in my notes. So this is the restaurant saying this. One size does not fit all. Keep the dining closest to the facade. They said that because they did not like the idea of the server walking across the sidewalk with trays and drinks and food and that type of thing. They also said the visitors love it, but if it's not possible to do it safely, do it where it is. This is all their comments. So I can just tell you that, to Sharon's point, facades at a minimum is something that would definitely be an assist. And just having worked with doing events and that type of thing, it is not usual for logistics and safety. Stop your plans or change them. It happens all the time. So now it's happening to you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Carol, very much. So if there's no further comment by the commissioners, I again want to, on behalf of the commissioners, want to thank Dennis and Howard and working with City Manager Lynn to come up with this. And then we'll direct them to take a second look at this to see if they can help develop at least a minimalist outdoor dining program that allows for safe passage of pedestrians in a crowded city when we return to more normalcy. And I expect, I'm not sure I want to set a date right now for the next meeting, but I would say it would be in early January on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And yes.
I just like to, I think we've been having so many problems scheduling meetings and getting a consensus that it may be worth just setting a meeting so it's at least on everyone's calendar. Our first budget meeting is Monday the 4th. Tuesday the 5th may be a good time to specifically talk about the Meterless Monday.
That work for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and schedule January 5th, Tuesday, January 5 at 3 p.m. for the next COVID meeting. And then we'll go from there. If you recall, at some time, hopefully in January, on a Tuesday afternoon that we don't have a COVID meeting, I want to start the tree code review. And that date, I should be able to formalize date and a longer term schedule within the next week. Is there any other comments by city staff or commissioners?
We're good, Mayor. Thank you very much.
If not, then I'll call this meeting as adjourned. Thank you very much, Carol, and everybody for participating.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.